The research ship Meridian moved slowly through space like a giant metal whale. Inside its white hallways, creatures from 12 different worlds worked together. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like walking machines. But they all had one thing in common. They thought humans were boring. Lisa Martinez sat alone in the biolab, looking at green plants through a microscope. She was 23 years old with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her clothes were too big for her small frame, and she never spoke louder than a whisper. The other crew members barely noticed her as she moved through the ship like a ghost. The tall lizard-like Krex warriors would walk past her lab and shake their heads. Their leader, Commander Zevka, had bright yellow eyes and teeth like daggers. He often told his soldiers that humans like Lisa proved Earth people were weak. His thick voice would echo through the corridors as he complained about having soft humans on a real ship. The Veltar were different from the Krex. They looked almost human but had blue skin and large black eyes. They could read minds, which made them feel superior to everyone else. When they passed Lisa's lab, their thoughts would touch her mind briefly, then pull away in boredom. To them, she was just another dull human with simple thoughts about plants and flowers. The Nexari were the strangest of all. They looked like people made of silver metal with glowing blue lines running under their artificial skin. They were smarter than computers and could calculate faster than any living brain. When they saw Lisa counting plant samples with her hands instead of using advanced scanners, they would make clicking sounds that meant they thought she was primitive. Lisa worked quietly every day, writing notes about alien plants in neat handwriting. She would arrive early and leave late, never causing trouble or asking for help. During mealtimes, she would sit at the corner table with a book, eating her food slowly while other species told loud stories about their home worlds and their great victories in war. The ship's captain was a Krex named Torgan, who had fought in 3 galactic wars. He had scars across his green face and a metal arm that replaced the one he lost in battle. Sometimes he would visit different sections of the ship to check on his crew. When he came to the biolab, he would look at Lisa for exactly 3 seconds, nod once, and leave without saying anything. Other humans on the ship were different from Lisa. There was Jake Coleman, a loud engineer who told jokes and fixed broken machines. There was Amy Parker, a navigator who could plot courses through dangerous space storms. There was Ben Hayes, a communications officer who spoke 7 alien languages. They were normal humans who laughed and argued and made friends with the alien crew members. But Lisa was invisible. She would walk to her lab each morning, study her plants, eat lunch alone, study more plants, and return to her small room each night. The aliens thought this was typical human behavior, weak, boring, and useless for anything important. 3 months into their deep space mission, everything changed. The ship's computers started making warning sounds that echoed through every hallway. Red lights flashed as the crew rushed to their battle stations. Captain Torgan's voice boomed over the speakers, calling all senior officers to the bridge. Lisa was looking at a purple flower from Kepler 186F when the alarm started. She carefully put down her tools and walked to her door, listening to the heavy footsteps of Krex warriors running past. Their weapons made metallic sounds as they bounced against their armor. The message came through the ship's communication system 20 minutes later. A mining colony on Kepler 442c had sent a distress signal 3 days ago, then went completely silent. Long-range scanners showed no movement, no heat signatures, and no responses to radio calls. The entire colony of 800 people had simply vanished. Captain Torgan gathered his best fighters in the main briefing room. The room was filled with the ship's strongest and smartest crew members. Krex warriors stood at attention with their battle armor gleaming. Veltar specialists sat with their eyes closed, trying to sense any psychic traces from the distant planet. Nexari tactical officers displayed holographic maps and calculated the best approach routes. Lisa appeared in the doorway like a shadow. She held a small data pad in her hands and waited quietly while the captain explained the mission. When he finished talking about rescue procedures and possible dangers, Lisa raised her hand slightly. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the small human girl who never spoke in meetings. Captain Torgan's yellow eyes narrowed as He stared at her. "I would like to join the away team," Lisa said in her soft voice. "My knowledge of xenobiology might help determine what happened to the colonists." Commander Zefka made a sound like a growling laugh. "This is a military operation, not a plant collecting trip. We need fighters, not flower watchers." Lisa looked directly at him without blinking. "If something killed 800 colonists in 3 days, it might be biological. I can identify alien organisms and understand how they affect human physiology." The Nexari Tactical Officer, Unit 47, processed this statement in 0.3 seconds. "The human's expertise could provide valuable data if we encounter unknown biological threats. Her presence carries minimal risk and potential strategic value." Captain Torgan considered this for exactly 30 seconds. The mining colony was important to the Galactic Coalition, and they needed to understand what destroyed it. If there was even a small chance that Lisa's plant knowledge could help, it was worth bringing her along. "Fine," he said with a voice like grinding stone. "But you stay behind the fighters and follow orders without question." Lisa nodded once and left the room as quietly as she had entered. The other team members continued planning their mission, discussing weapons loadouts and tactical formations. None of them paid attention to the small human who had just volunteered to walk into unknown danger. That night, Lisa sat in her room preparing for the mission. She packed her usual scientific equipment, microscopes, sample containers, and identification guides. Her movements were careful and precise as she organized everything into her standard issue backpack. Through her small window, she could see the distant star that warmed Kepler 4142c. In 18 hours, she would be walking on the surface of that world, searching for answers about what had happened to 800 missing people. The quiet girl who studied flowers was about to enter a place where something terrible had happened. But as she prepared her equipment with steady hands, there was something in her calm movements that suggested she was not as helpless as everyone believed. Tomorrow would change everything. The shuttle dropped through the thick clouds surrounding Kepler 446 like a metal bird diving toward the ground. Inside, 12 crew members sat in silence as they prepared for landing. The mining colony should have been visible from orbit, but their scanners showed only empty buildings and silent machines. Lisa sat in the back corner, checking her scientific equipment one more time. Around her, the alien warriors prepared their weapons with practiced movements. Commander Zefka loaded energy cells into his plasma rifle while his 3 Krek soldiers tested their armor systems. The clicking sounds echoed through the small shuttle as they activated their battle gear. The 2 Veltar specialists, Kira and Dex, sat with their eyes closed and hands pressed to their temples. They were trying to sense any living minds on the planet below, but their blue faces showed confusion and worry. Dex opened his black eyes and shook his head slowly. "I sense nothing," he said in his musical voice. "No human thoughts, no animal minds, not even the simple awareness of insects. The planet feels empty of all conscious life." Unit 47, the Nexari Tactical Officer, processed this information while running final diagnostics on the team's equipment. His silver face showed no emotion as red lights blinked across his artificial skin. Colony records indicate 847 human miners, 23 automated systems, and approximately 15,000 imported Earth animals. Current life sign readings show 0 biological activity. The shuttle touched down in the main landing area of the colony with a soft thud. Through the windows, they could see rows of prefabricated buildings that looked normal from the outside. Solar panels gleamed on the rooftops, and transport vehicles sat parked in neat lines. Everything appeared exactly as it should, except for the complete absence of any living thing. Captain Torgan stood up and activated his personal shield generator. The other team members followed his example, their various protective systems humming to life. Lisa had no shield generator or armor, only her oversized lab coat and a small emergency communicator clipped to her belt. The shuttle door opened with a hiss of escaping air. The planet's atmosphere was breathable for humans and most coalition species, but it smelled wrong. Instead of the clean air that should surround a functioning colony, there was a sweet, rotting odor that made several team members cover their faces. They walked toward the main administrative building in formation. The Krex warriors took point with their weapons ready, while the Veltar specialists stayed in the middle, constantly scanning for mental activity. Unit 47 moved with mechanical precision, his sensors recording everything they encountered. Lisa walked at the back of the group, seemingly focused on collecting soil samples and taking pictures of local plant life. The first building they entered was the colony's central hub. It contained the communication center, administrative offices, and main computer systems. Everything looked normal at first glance. Desks had personal items sitting on them, coffee cups, family photos, and work tablets. It was as if everyone had simply vanished in the middle of their daily routine. Commander Zefka examined a security station where someone had left a half-eaten sandwich. The bread was moldy, but otherwise the food looked like it had been abandoned only days ago. His yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the scene. No signs of struggle, he reported. No weapons discharge, no blood, no broken furniture. Whatever happened here was either very fast or the colonists went willingly. Unit 47 accessed the colony's computer systems and began downloading data logs. His glowing blue lines pulsed faster as he processed months of information in seconds. Last recorded entries are from 6 days ago. All systems show normal operation until communications ceased abruptly at 14:37 local time. Lisa had been quietly examining some plants growing near the building's entrance. She found something that made her pause and look more carefully. The local vegetation was wrong somehow. The leaves were the right color and shape, but they seemed too healthy, too vibrant for plants that should have been struggling in the artificial environment of a mining colony. The team moved deeper into the settlement, checking building after building. The mess hall had tables set for dinner that was never served. The residential quarters had beds that looked like people had just gotten up from sleeping. Personal belongings were scattered around rooms in normal patterns, showing no signs that anyone had packed to leave. In the medical center, they found something more disturbing. The emergency treatment room showed signs of recent use. Medical equipment had been moved around, and there were empty containers that once held various medicines and surgical supplies. But there were no patients, no bodies, and no medical records explaining what had been treated. Dex, the Veltar specialist, suddenly stopped walking and pressed both hands to his head. His blue face became pale as he staggered against a wall. Kira immediately moved to help him, her own psychic abilities reaching out to understand what was wrong. "Something touched my mind," Dex whispered. "Just for a moment. It felt like hunger. Endless, terrible hunger." The team immediately went into defensive positions, but their scanners showed nothing. The buildings around them remained as empty and silent as before. Whatever Dex had sensed was either gone or hidden beyond their ability to detect. They continued their search, moving toward the mining facilities on the outskirts of the colony. These buildings were larger and more industrial, filled with heavy machinery, used to extract valuable minerals from the planet's crust. The equipment stood silent and covered with a thin layer of dust but otherwise appeared undamaged. Lisa had been growing quieter as they explored, speaking only when directly asked questions. But those who paid attention might have noticed that her movements had become more focused and deliberate. She no longer wandered around collecting random plant samples. Instead, she examined specific areas with the intensity of someone looking for particular clues. In the main mining facility, they found the first real evidence of what had happened to the colonists. The floor was covered with a thin, web-like substance that looked almost organic. It stretched across the entire room in complex patterns, connecting the various pieces of machinery like a vast nervous system. Unit 47 analyzed the material and immediately stepped backward. This substance contains biological components that do not match any known species in coalition databases. Chemical composition suggests a form of organic technology designed to interface with both living tissue and mechanical systems. Commander Zefka raised his weapon, though there was nothing to shoot at. "Are you saying something was converting our technology?" Before Unit 47 could answer, the web-like substance began to glow with a soft, pulsing light. The light moved, along the strands like blood flowing through veins, and with each pulse, They could hear a sound like whispered voices speaking in a language none of them recognized. Lisa stepped forward and knelt beside one of the glowing strands. The other team members watched nervously as she pulled out a small device and carefully took a sample of the material. Her hands were perfectly steady as she worked, showing no fear of the strange, possibly dangerous substance. "We need to leave," she said quietly, standing up and sealing her sample container. "Now." Her voice carried a tone of authority that surprised everyone. This was not the uncertain whisper they were used to hearing from the shy botanist. Commander Zefka looked at her with new attention. "Why, what did you find?" Lisa was already walking toward the exit, moving faster than they had seen her move before. "This isn't just biological technology, it's a conversion system, and judging by the growth patterns and chemical signatures, it's been active for much longer than 6 days. As if responding to her words, the glowing strands began to pulse faster. The whispered voices grew louder, and somewhere in the distance they heard the sound of heavy footsteps moving through the colony buildings. The quiet girl was no longer quiet, and something was coming for them all. The footsteps grew louder as the team ran from the mining facility. Whatever was making those sounds was big and moving fast through the empty buildings. Commander Zefka led his warriors in a fighting retreat toward the shuttle, but they were not fast enough. The first creature appeared between 2 storage buildings like a nightmare come to life. It had once been human, but now it was something else entirely. Its arms were too long and ended in claws that could cut through metal. Its face still looked partly human, but the mouth was filled with rows of sharp teeth, and its eyes glowed with the same pulsing light they had seen in the web-like substance. "Open fire!" Commander Zefka shouted, raising his plasma rifle. The energy bolts hit the creature directly in the chest, but instead of falling down, it absorbed the energy and grew larger. Its skin rippled and changed, becoming thicker and more armored where the plasma had struck. The creature made a sound like screaming mixed with laughter and charged toward them. More creatures emerged from other buildings. Some had been human, colonists. Others appeared to be the imported Earth animals, but all had been changed into something horrible. They moved with intelligence, but also with an animal hunger that made them incredibly dangerous. Unit 47 fired his advanced weapons at the approaching monsters, but his energy beams seemed to make them stronger rather than weaker. "These entities are adapting to our weapon signatures in real time," he reported while backing away from a creature that had once been a mining robot. "They are learning and evolving faster than our targeting systems can compensate." The Veltar specialists tried to use their mind powers to confuse or stop the creatures, but Dex immediately fell to his knees screaming. The mental contact with the monsters filled his head with images of endless hunger and the desire to consume everything living. Kira grabbed her companion and tried to shield his mind from the psychic assault. "They are in my head," Dex cried, out, blood running from his nose. "They want to eat thoughts, eat souls, eat everything." The team was surrounded now with creatures closing in from all directions. The Krex warriors formed a defensive circle, but their weapons were becoming less effective with each shot as the monsters adapted to their attacks. It looked like they would all die in this abandoned colony, far from home and help. That was when Lisa moved. She stepped out from behind Unit 47 where she had been taking cover and walked directly toward the nearest creature. It had been a human woman once, probably a mining engineer based on the torn uniform it still wore. Now it was something with too many arms and a mouth that opened wider than any human mouth should. Lisa reached into her oversized lab coat and pulled out a small device that looked like a medical scanner. She pointed it at the creature and pressed a button. Immediately, the monster stopped moving and began making choking sounds. Black liquid poured from its mouth as it collapsed to the ground. The other team members stared in shock as Lisa moved to the next creature with calm, practiced motions. This one had been a large dog, but now it was the size of a small truck with spikes growing from its back. Lisa studied it for exactly 3 seconds, then pulled out a different device and activated it. The creature's spikes dissolved, and it fell over dead. "What are you doing?" Commander Zefka demanded, still firing his weapon at monsters that were no longer paying attention to him. They were all focused on Lisa now, moving toward her with what looked like fear instead of hunger. Lisa did not answer immediately. She was busy killing another creature, this one a former colonist that had grown extra legs and could run up walls. She threw something at it that looked like a small capsule. When the capsule broke open, the creature began dissolving from the inside out. "I am doing my job," Lisa said in a voice that was no longer quiet or shy. Her words carried the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "These are devourers. They have been extinct for over a century, but someone has been breeding them and making them stronger." More creatures poured out of the buildings, but Lisa met each one with a different weapon or tool pulled from her coat. She moved like a dancer, never in the same place for more than a few seconds, always knowing exactly how to kill whatever came at her. The team watched in amazement as the small human woman systematically destroyed monsters that their advanced weapons could barely slow down. She did not just fight them. She seemed to understand them completely, targeting specific biological weaknesses that caused each creature to die quickly and efficiently. "Who are you?" Unit 47 asked, his computational system struggling to process what he was witnessing. Lisa threw a handful of powder at a group of smaller creatures, causing them to turn on each other in a feeding frenzy. "I am Lisa Martinez, Biological Warfare Specialist, Earth Defense Command Special Operations Division." Her voice was steady and professional as she spoke. "I have been studying devourer biology for 6 years, preparing for the day they returned, Commander." Zevka lowered his weapon as the last of the creatures fell dead around them. "You are military, but your records say you are a botanist." Lisa reloaded one of her devices with practiced efficiency. "Botany is the study of plant life. Xenobiology is the study of alien life. Biological warfare is the study of how to kill any form of life quickly and completely." She looked at him with eyes that were no longer shy or uncertain. "I am very good at my job." The truth hit the team like a physical blow. Earth had not sent a harmless plant researcher on their mission. They had sent a killer who specialized in fighting biological threats. While the other species had focused on building better weapons and stronger armor, humans had created specialists who could understand life itself and destroy it from within. "How many of you are there?" Kira asked, her psychic abilities finally able to sense the deadly focus in Lisa's mind, now that she was no longer hiding it. Lisa smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Enough. We have been preparing for threats like this since humanity joined the coalition. While you assumed we were weak, we were learning how to kill things that cannot be killed by conventional weapons." She began walking toward the colony's central hub, stepping over the bodies of creatures that minutes before had seemed unstoppable. "The devourers are just the beginning. Someone has been experimenting with them, making them stronger and smarter. We need to find their source before more colonies disappear." The alien team members followed her, no longer seeing a quiet human botanist, but a predator who had been hiding among them all along. They realized that every assumption they had made about humans was wrong. The quiet ones were not weak. They were the most dangerous of all, because they were always watching, always learning, and always preparing for the moment when that knowledge would be needed. Lisa Martinez had spent months studying every species on their ship, not out of scientific curiosity, but to understand how to kill them if necessary. The thought terrified them more than any monster they had just faced. Lisa led the team deeper into the colony with the confidence of a hunter who knew her prey. The alien crew members followed her in stunned silence, still trying to understand how the quiet human girl had become their leader in a matter of minutes. She moved through the empty streets like she owned them, checking corners and examining traces that the others could not even see. "The source is underground," Lisa said, stopping in front of a maintenance building that looked exactly like all the others. "The devourers need a controlled environment to evolve this quickly. Someone built them a laboratory beneath the colony." Commander Zevka looked at the building with his enhanced vision but saw nothing special. "How can you know this?" Lisa knelt beside what appeared to be a normal ventilation grate and pulled out a small device. She held it near the metal bars and nodded at the readings. The air coming from below contains spores that only exist during rapid devourer reproduction. The concentration levels indicate a breeding facility approximately 50 meters underground. She stood up and began removing the grate with tools, that seemed to appear from nowhere in her coat. Unit 47 scanned the area and confirmed her analysis, though his advanced sensors had needed several minutes to detect what she had identified in seconds. There is indeed a large artificial space. Beneath this location, Unit 47 reported, my sensors also detect significant energy readings and what appears to be a sophisticated laboratory complex. The maintenance shaft led to a tunnel system that was not shown on any colony maps. The tunnels were wider than necessary for normal maintenance work, and the walls showed signs of recent construction. Lisa examined scratches in the metal and nodded grimly. These tunnels were built specifically for the Devourer project, she said. Someone has been planning this for years, probably since before the colony was even established. They followed the main tunnel for 20 minutes before reaching a massive underground chamber. The space was filled with scientific equipment that looked like a combination of Coalition technology and something else entirely. Tanks filled with bubbling liquid lined the walls, and each tank contained creatures in various stages of transformation. In the center of the chamber sat a figure that might have once been human but was now something between organic and machine. Cables and tubes connected its body to the laboratory equipment, and its eyes glowed with the same light they had seen in the creatures above. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers throughout the room. "Welcome, Coalition forces," the thing said in a voice like grinding metal. "I am Dr. Nathan Brooks, former xenobiologist and current architect of evolution itself. You are just in time to witness the next stage of galactic development." Commander Zefka raised his weapon, but Lisa held up her hand to stop him. She was studying the creature that had been Dr. Brooks with intense focus, analyzing every visible detail of his transformation. "You are controlling the Devourers," Lisa said. It was not a question but a statement of fact. You have been using them to test Coalition defenses, learning how each species fights so you can create better biological weapons. Dr. Brooks laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Each species is so predictable. The Kreks rely on brute force, the Veltar on mental powers, the Nexari on computational analysis. But none of you understand the true potential of biological warfare." The tanks around the chamber began to glow brighter, and the creatures inside started moving more actively. Lisa counted at least 30 different life forms, each one designed to counter specific Coalition species. She could see Devourers modified to resist energy weapons, others adapted to block psychic attacks, and some that could disrupt electronic systems. "You are wrong about one thing," Lisa said calmly, walking toward the center of the chamber. "You assume the Coalition species are predictable because you never studied the most dangerous one." Dr. Brooks focused his glowing eyes on her. "Humans. You are the weakest species in the Coalition. No natural weapons, no advanced technology, no special abilities. You are barely worth consideration." Lisa smiled the same cold smile she had shown the team earlier. "That is exactly what makes us so dangerous. While you were busy preparing for obvious threats, you never noticed us." She reached into her coat and pulled out a device that looked like a simple spray bottle. Dr. Brooks laughed at the primitive appearance of her weapon, but his laughter stopped when she began spraying the air around his control systems. The mist from her bottle spread quickly through the chamber, and everywhere it touched, the Devourer technology began to dissolve. The creatures in the tank started convulsing as their life support systems failed. The cables connecting Dr. Brooks to his equipment sparked and disconnected. "What are you doing?" Dr. Brooks screamed, his voice becoming more human and less mechanical as his enhancements failed. "Biological warfare," Lisa replied simply. "You created these creatures to be perfect predators, but you forgot the most basic rule of biology. Everything has a weakness, and humans are very good at finding weaknesses." The substance she had sprayed was not just a weapon, but a carefully designed biological agent that targeted the specific proteins used in Devourer reproduction. Without those proteins, the creatures could not maintain their enhanced forms and began reverting to their original states. Dr. Brooks tried to activate emergency systems, but his connection to the laboratory was breaking down as Lisa's agent spread through the ventilation system. The Devourers that had been his masterpiece were dying all around him, unable to adapt fast enough to counter a threat they had never encountered before. Humans study every other species, not because we are curious, Lisa continued, moving closer to the failing scientist. We study you because we need to know how to kill you if you become a threat to our survival. The chamber filled with alarms as the laboratory systems collapsed. Lisa calmly walked to the main computer terminal and began downloading all the research data while the enhanced devourers died in their tanks. How long have you been planning this? Commander Zefka asked, watching the destruction with amazement. 6 months, Lisa replied without looking up from the computer. Earth intelligence detected signs of devourer activity and placed specialists like me throughout the Coalition fleet. We have been preparing for this exact scenario. Unit 47 processed this information and came to a disturbing conclusion. There are more human operatives hidden among Coalition forces. Lisa finished her download and looked at the team with her quiet, deadly smile. We are everywhere. In your fleets, your colonies, your research stations, the quiet ones you never notice, studying and learning and preparing. Dr. Brooks made one final attempt to release his remaining creatures, but Lisa had already neutralized his control systems. The mad scientist collapsed as his enhancements failed completely, leaving him as just a broken human surrounded by the ruins of his deadly project. The team made their way back to the surface as the underground laboratory destroyed itself with built-in security measures. Lisa walked ahead of them, once again appearing to be nothing more than a quiet botanist with an oversized coat. As they reached their shuttle, Commander Zefka realized that everything had changed. The Coalition would never look at humans the same way again. They had learned that the quiet ones were not weak, but were instead the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Lisa settled into her corner seat and pulled out a book as if nothing had happened. But now the alien crew members gave her plenty of space, understanding that the small human who studied plants was actually a killer who could end any life form in the galaxy. The quiet girl had shown them what humans really were, and that knowledge would haunt them forever.